Hi, everyone. We're so happy to see you today. Welcome to Preschool Parade. Today, we're going to be talking all about polar bears and penguins. These are friends who like to have fun in the snow, so we thought it would be great to talk about them today. My name is Miss Heidi, and I'm with the Miller branch of the Howard County Library System. Hi.
Hi, everyone. I'm Miss Sylvia, also with the Miller branch of the Howard County Library System. We're so excited to talk about polar bears and penguins with you. So, first up, we have a song. So I'm going to stop sharing for that. And we have a song and it's called All the Snow is Falling Down. So I will sing a verse and then Miss Heidi will sing a verse. Okay, get your snowflakes ready. All the snow is falling down, falling down, falling down. All the snow is falling down. It's a winter day.
Great job. What do we want to do once that snow has fallen down? Let's get ready to roll the snow into a ball. Are you ready? Roll that snow into a ball, into a ball, into a ball. Roll that snow into a ball. Let's make a snowman. Yay! So many fun things you can do in the snow, boys and girls, but I think we need to learn what some polar bears and penguins might do, right, Miss Sylvia?
That's right. And to learn about it, I have this really awesome book, Miss Heidi. This one is called Polar Bears and Penguins. It's a compare and contrast book. It's by Catherine Hall and it's nonfiction. So it's going to give us information and facts about polar bears and penguins. So I'm just going to share a couple of facts that I found were really interesting. One of the main things I thought was really important to know is, so penguins and polar bears are both polar animals, but polar bears, they live here. Here's the Earth, the globe. They live here in the northern hemisphere in the Arctic. So that's at the top. Now penguins, they live in the southern hemisphere, and that's here in Antarctica. So that's something that's different between the two. They both live in really cold places, but one lives up in the north and down, and the other down in the south. And then the other thing that's really cool was polar bears are a type of bear. They're covered in fur to keep them warm. Yep, just like Miss Heidi is showing us. And penguins, they're a type of bird, so they're covered in feathers. So I thought those were some cool facts to learn from this book, Polar Bears and Penguins, a compare and contrast book. And if you want to learn more about polar bears and penguins, there's a lot more information in here, so check it out.
Miss Sylvia, that is a wonderful book, and I love the pictures in there.
Yeah.
I also have a book about polar bears and penguins, but it's a fiction book. So it's not a true book, but it's also called Polar Opposites because they live on opposite sides of the poles. This is by Eric Brooks. Look at those two. It looks like they're together at the top of the world, but that's not really where they live. So we have Alex here. He is a very big polar bear. And look at little Zina. She is a tiny penguin. Big, little. That's some other way they're different. And like Miss Sylvia said, they are polar opposites. Alex here lives at the top in the northern hemisphere. Zina lives all the way down in the southern hemisphere. The Arctic versus Antarctica. This is a nice fiction, fun book to read about polar bears and penguins that might not be true, but you can still learn a lot about them and see how those two got to be friends, even though they don't live close together. Polar Opposites by Eric Brooks.
That's great, Miss Heidi. I love that they're best friends. That's so cool.
I love that too. And we have to talk about polar bears and penguins. And I have some friends here so that we can talk about them. Look at them. There are polar bears and penguins all together. Let's see if we can count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 polar friends, right? Let's see what happens with them. 5 polar friends. They're throwing snow through a door. Oh, but one threw too hard. And then there were 4. That's right, Miss Sylvia. 4 polar friends. They tried to climb a tree. Oh, but one fell off. And now there are 3. 3 polar friends. They were keeping warm with fish stew. One, burned his tongue. And now there are 2. 2 polar friends. They were both having fun. Oh, but one fell down. And now there was one. His one polar friend. He felt lonely in the sun. So he left to find his friends. And then there were none. I like that they were friends in that, Miss Sylvia.
Yes, yes.
That was so fun.
So next up, we have another book to share. And this one's going to give us some more information, a little bit about penguins. This book is called Penguins Waddle by Rebecca Glazer. And look at Miss Heidi has a penguin who's waddling. So this book is going to tell us some different movements that penguins make. I'm going to share a couple with you. So look at this. Look at these photographs. This penguin is swimming. So penguins swim. It's a great picture. And then something else that penguins do is they live together in groups and they huddle. Yeah, so they're all standing so close together because penguins huddle. If you want to learn more about what penguins do, check this book out, Penguins Waddle by Rebecca Glazer.
I bet they have to huddle, Miss Sylvia, to keep warm, right?
Probably, I think so.
That's one way to keep warm if they're all together.
Yeah.
Well, I also have a book about baby polar bears. Look at them. This is a baby polar bear story by Martha Rustad. And they also is a true book that has real pictures in that about baby polar bears. And look at them. When they're first born, they're in the den with their mother. So look at this. It's like a big snow cave. They're staying safe in there. But even when they get to come outside, look at them. They still have to stay and keep warm by their mom. So they huddle too a little bit. But what can happen if they get too far away from their mom while she's trying to teach them to catch fish? One could fall in and the mom has to help her. Look at that. She has to get the fur right here and pull her out of the ice. So the baby polar bears will need their moms for a long time until they can grow up and be on their own. So this is a baby polar bear story.
Awesome. I think we're time for another song.
Oh, good, Miss Sylvia. Thank you.
So this song is called If You're Snowy and You Know It. So Miss Heidi, you're going to start us off for this one.
Oh, I love this song, Miss Sylvia. You got to get your paws ready, though, this time.
Yes.
If it's snowy and you know it, clap your paws. If it's snowy and you know it, clap your paws. If it's snowy and you know it, make a snowball then and throw it. If it's snowy and you know it, clap your paws. Go ahead, Miss Sylvia.
Yep, the next verse is about our fur. If your fur is full of flurries, taste a flake. If your fur is full of flurries, taste a flake. If your fur is full of flurries, you'll forget your winter worries. If your fur is full of flurries, taste a flake.
Mmm. Tasting the snowflakes as they fall down is one of my very favorite things to do.
Me too.
The idea for that song from this book, if it's snowy and you know it, clap your paws. Look at all those animal friends having fun in the snow. And this is by Kim Norman. So there's a lot of other things in here that those animals do that you could add to your song. If you're snowy and you know it, clap your paws.
Awesome.
So cute.
So this time I have a book about polar bears. This is a new book. We should have a new book alert. New book alert. So this book is called A Polar Bear in the Snow.
Oh my goodness.
Mac Barnett. There's a polar bear and he's walking around. We wonder where he's going. Who's he going to visit? Where will he end up? So first, love this part. There's a polar bear in the snow. Do you see him, Miss Heidi?
No, he's in the snow. You can't see him. There's too much white.
Wait, let's see. How about now?
I
Part of the
see.
polar bear?
I see one little nose part.
Oh.
Maybe, if that's who he is.
What about here?
Oh my goodness, this face is starting to come in. That is so cute, Miss Sylvia, in the snow.
So that's the polar bear, and he starts traveling on a trip, and he meets different people and sees different things. But then we have to find out, where will he go? Who will he visit next? Is he taking some steps in the snow on another trip, another journey? So you'll have to read to find out. A Polar Bear in the Snow by Mac Barnett.
That is so cute, Miss Sylvia. And you never know where those polar bears would go. And if you saw a real polar bear, like with those footprints, they have some big feet, boys and girls.
Yeah. So that story gave me an idea for a craft, Miss Heidi. And I made my very own polar bear in the snow. Here's the finished one. I started out with my hand. So you'll need a white piece of paper for the polar bear. And on one part, you'll trace a hand. And then the other part, you'll need to draw a circle and some ears for the polar bear's head. And what I chose to do was I ripped the hand along the edge, the outside, so it looks like it has fur. I wanted to give it some fur. But you can just choose to use scissors. And if you need help, you can ask a grown-up. And then once you have it cut out, the headpiece, this part, gets glued over the thumb of your hand. And I used black to make the paws and the part of the face with the nose and the mouth. And then I used pink to give it a little bit of some rosy cheeks and the ears. So that's how I created my own polar bear in the snow. You could also just draw the whole thing on white paper if you didn't want to put it on a different color. So that's my craft for today.
Miss Sylvia, he is so cute. I want to make one right now. He is a very, very cute little polar bear. Well, Miss Sylvia did a polar bear craft, so I did a penguin craft, and I got my idea from this book called Penguin's Big Adventure by Selena Yoon. Miss Yoon has a lot of penguin books, and in this one, he goes on an adventure. Look at him trying to climb that snowy mountain, and he goes somewhere where he's never been before, and he might meet a friend. Look at him. He's a little afraid because Penguin has never met a polar bear, because you remember penguins don't live in the same place as a polar bear. So is that Penguin's big adventure, or is them becoming friends maybe a big adventure that they have? So I have my own little penguin that I think is so cute, and he always has a scarf on in most of his books. So I decided to make a penguin, and I started with a spoon. It doesn't look like this could become a penguin, does it, Miss Sylvia?
Not yet.
You draw a penguin shape and put the spoon through the penguin shape. That becomes his penguin belly. Look at that. And he is black around, and I just put some eyes up there and a little beak and some little feet. that you can just cut a little hole in the black part after you make the penguin and stick the spoon through and then just tape it on the back like that. And then if you want to make him really look like the penguin from Penguin's Big Adventure, he always has this orange scarf on, and you can make a scarf shape. And then just tape that onto the part where his neck might be to keep him warm in the winter time. That is my little penguin craft. And then he can have all kinds of adventures with you as you carry him around.
I love that, Miss Heidi.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
And Miss Sylvia and I had so much fun with this class, boys and girls. We just found so many books, and you'll find some of them on the resource paper attached with this class. So we hope you read all of them. But one that we found that you have to really check out is Polar. And this is a phototicular book. And it was created by Dan Kanan. And the reason why we said you have to check it out is because inside this book, if you move the pages, look at that, the penguins can dance because the photographs in here make them move. I love it. It's like holographic. And then it's just called Polar, not polar bears, not penguins, but all different polar animals in here. But of course, they do have polar bears. And look at that little polar bear cub with his mom.
Oh, so cute.
So cute. So there's other polar animals in here. If you want to learn more about them, you need to look at this book. I loved it. That was a fun class, right, Miss Sylvia?
That was. So we are getting ready to say goodbye. We want to make sure that you are able to see where you can send feedback. So we would like to thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks for watching Preschool Parade, Polar Bears and Penguins, and we hope you had a great time exploring with us, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time. Bye, friends.